Hello, everybody. I'm Heather Butts with Health for Youth and Columbia University, where I'm an associate professor. I'm excited to be here with our friends from Epicured. So Samantha and Alex are here, and Samantha Podob is going to be talking with us about all things health and nutrition. So I will hand it over to her for our presentation. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Thank you. It's great to be here. So today we're going to talk about how we can make our food taste great. Oops, sorry. So our goals for today are really understanding salt and flavor, right? We want to know what is salt and what are the health risks of having too much salt, our daily sodium limits, and what is our salt's role in flavoring our food? Are there ways that we can boost flavor without salt? Is that even a thing that we can do? And are there tips that we can kind of talk about to build a flavor-packed pantry? So when we talk about salt, we know that salt is made up of two minerals. It's sodium and chloride. 40% is sodium and 60% is chloride. So sodium is a mineral that helps your body work properly. So it helps our body kind of control fluids in the body. It helps with different nerve signals and muscle movements. And then it also helps our kidneys. They help to keep the sodium levels in balance in our bodies. And sodium can be found in table salt, but it also can be found in our processed foods and our packaged foods. And our bodies need a small amount of sodium to function, but when we have too much, this is when it starts to be harmful. So what do we want to do? We want to make sure that we're checking our food labels for the sodium content. So people often ask if pink salt or sea salt or kosher salt or whatever salt, is it healthier than regular plain table salt? And the truth is that they all have about the same amount of sodium in them. You might use a little less depending on the grain, or we might use iodized salt to help prevent iodine deficiency. And we may even use salt substitutes sometimes, but they have potassium in them. And sometimes we don't want that extra potassium. We want to make sure that we're talking with our doctors to make sure that the potassium is okay for us to take in. Sometimes we have to limit our potassium. So what is really the key here? We want to use less salt overall to boost the flavors with other ingredients like garlic or herbs or different spices or even lemon juice. So why is reducing salt important? When we have too much salt, the body can hold on to water, and this puts a lot of pressure on our heart and our kidneys. So what happens? It can lead to high blood pressure, and we often call this a silent killer because we don't know that our blood pressure is high. We end up in the hospital, or we have a stroke, or we find out that we have heart disease, and so this can be a problem. We can have kidney problems. We can even experience some bloating or even some swelling in our legs and our feet. We can have weight gain, and we can even have headaches. So when we cut back, we can help lower our blood pressure. We can protect our kidneys and our heart. We can start to feel less bloated. We can start to feel less swollen. We can reduce the risk of long-term health problems. And we're saving lives, and we're saving over $26 billion in healthcare costs over 10 years. So now that we kind of understand what salt is, what sodium, how it works in the body, let's talk about how much we actually need. So the current guidelines from the dietary guidelines for Americans, they recommend that we have about 1 teaspoon of salt, which is about 2,300 milligrams per day. And the American Heart Association is starting to move towards this goal of having 1,500 milligrams a day, especially for those who are at high risk for heart disease or those who have high blood pressure. But here's the thing, is that the problem is that most people in the US are eating around 3,400 3,400 milligrams of sodium, which is 50% more than the recommendation. So we think about what this actually looks like. We can approximate how much salt is in sodium is in table salt. So if we're having 1 teaspoon, that's the recommendation of 2,300 milligrams. If we have a half a teaspoon, that's about 1,000. Sorry, that's about let's say it's about 1,100 milligrams. And if we're having a quarter teaspoon, it's about 500 milligrams. So where we get our salt is not just from the salt shaker. We really see them in our processed foods, in our packaged foods, and even in our restaurant foods. So even if we don't feel like we're eating a lot of salty foods, we might still be getting sodium more than we are realizing. So that's why it's really important that we pay attention and we season our foods well and we read nutrition facts labels. So let's think about this when we visualize a penny. We can say we have a full penny, and that's 1 teaspoon of salt, about 2,300 milligrams of the maximum recommendation for most people. We can say it's 1 teaspoon of salt. If we look on the left here, we have a Big Mac, right? A Big Mac has about 1,060 milligrams of sodium. So we think about that in comparison to that penny, that's about half of what we are required to have per day when we have a budget of 2,300 milligrams. And that, if we're just having the Big Mac, we're leaving out like the fries and the drink, and that's how quickly things can add up. But if we make our own hamburger at home, that'll only be about 50 milligrams of sodium, which is just like a pinch of salt. And that's, if you can see on the right, very small amount of that penny of that budget. So now let's kind of look at some everyday foods and how the sodium content can kind of change depending on, how they're prepared or how they're processed. So for example, if we're having an apple, this can range from maybe 0 to 1 milligram of sodium. But if we have apple chips that are have caramel and sea salt, we can see that the sodium starts to kind of add up. It comes to about 135 milligrams. So maybe the better choice here, if we're trying to limit our sodium, is having that apple. If we look at a baked potato, maybe that has 17 milligrams of sodium without anything on it. And if we're having our French fries from McDonald's, that's, a medium fry, the sodium is about 260 milligrams. So maybe in this situation, we do want to go with the lower sodium baked potato because, right, we're not having more salt. If we look at ketchup, 1 teaspoon of ketchup maybe has about 54 milligrams of sodium. And our barbecue sauce maybe has 290 milligrams. Our mustard is about 55 milligrams, which is kind of small if we look back at we think about the penny. And our relish has more, about 120 milligrams. So when we choose like fresh, whole foods more often and we watch those salty extras, this gives us a better chance to kind of stay under that whole penny of salt. So let's talk about, why salty food is so appealing and why it might taste better, or why things might taste different when we start to cut back, right? A lot of the time we say we have this challenge. Without salt, food just does not taste good. So why does this happen? Salt really does make food taste familiar and comforting. That's why we use it in our processed foods. It helps us to eat more. We want more of it. We won't stop eating it. And this leads to other health consequences. When we're used to salty foods, this can be like we have grown up with it. So foods that don't have salt don't taste as good. When salt is taken out, our food might seem really plain and boring at first. But the good news is that our taste buds do adjust over time, right? We start to notice and we can start to enjoy natural flavors in foods and we stop craving the extra salt. So it might feel a little off at first, but we don't want to give up, right? We want to kind of wait and see what the flavor boosters are, like our herbs, our spices, our citrus, garlic, onion, things like that. And our foods really do start to kind of taste great again. So, what does salt do in our foods, right? Salt is not just about the taste, it plays many different roles of how the food looks, how it tastes, and how it feels. So, it's a flavor booster, right? It makes the food taste a little bit stronger. It can bring out some of the sweetness. We think about this in like our baked goods or even in some of our veggies, it can bring out more flavor. It can reduce some of the bitterness, right? So when we have bitter greens or beans, it can make them taste smoother. It can also preserve our foods, right? So we can use them in canned, cured, or even packaged foods to kind of extend the shelf life. And it can also change the texture of the food. So it helps meats stay juicy and it also helps our breads rise. So when we remove the salt, sometimes, like we were just talking about, food can taste flat or dull at first, but we can replace this with tons of ingredients. So if we're cutting back on salt, the big question becomes, how do I keep my food from tasting really bland? Well, here's the good news, right? There are so many different ways and that we can make our foods taste really delicious without the salt shaker. So the first thing that we can do is we can use different herbs and spices. We can use basil and oregano and cumin, cinnamon, paprika, curry powder, parsley, dill, and even sage. And so when we use our herbs and spices, they add a layer of color, flavors, and even some health benefits. When we use citrus or vinegars, this kind of equates to when we use salt. Salt gives that bitter taste, right? Brings out flavors. A lot of the time, we're looking for that acid, right? When we're tasting. So we can use lemon or lime, balsamic, apple cider vinegar, rice vinegar, or even red or white vinegar to kind of bring out more flavors. This will kind of wake up your flavors just like the salt does, but without adding that extra salt or sodium. Our aromatics, so this would be like our garlic, onion, scallions, our ginger. And so these ingredients really help us to build flavor. So when we saute, roast, or even eat them raw, this can really give us our dishes a really rich and satisfying flavor and taste. And lastly, we have our healthy fats. So our healthy fats would be like olive oil, avocado, sesame oil, nuts, and even sesame seeds. And so kind of using these, it can help to carry the flavor and they're heart healthy, which is an added bonus. So when we use some of these techniques, we can make our meals more exciting and flavorful and even satisfying without having to overload on the extra salt. So currently, you're probably getting some of these meals, right? And so let's talk about how some of these meals, like our bold and our smoky flavors, like pastrami or pulled barbecue chicken sliders or chicken tacos, how can we get these meals to taste better without using salt? So if we want a really deep and smoky flavor without adding salt, we can use spices. We can use smoked paprika, cumin, black pepper, chili powder. We can add that on top of the meals, and that can enhance the flavor. We can add a little bit of garlic or onions or even scallion to give it more flavor, right? We can add some acid. So if we add some apple cider vinegar to our pulled barbecue chicken sliders, it's going to bring out the flavor even more. We can use lime, and that will kind of help with the barbecue sauce or the taco toppings. We can use cilantro or oregano or even parsley. And if we really want to, we can add some tomato paste, which will give it some good flavors, nutritional yeast, which will give it some more like a cheesy flavor and even a salty flavor. And there's no salt in it. And we can even use like a low sodium tamari sauce, and that will also help. If we are getting dishes that are really like creamy and comforting dishes, like our chicken or our egg salad, mac and cheese, or a chicken bacon lasagna, or different casseroles, right? We can try to add some onion or garlic powder, and this might enhance and warm up the food. We can add a little bit of lemon juice or even some zest, and that will kind of enhance the flavor. It'll make the flavor come out a lot more. It will even give it some brightness, and it will cut through some of the richness. So we'll really be enjoying them. We can add some parsley or some dill or some chives, and this will complement our creamy textures. And don't forget, we can also add some healthy fats, which will, also add to the flavors. So if we add some Greek yogurt or some avocados or even some olive oil, this might give us some more flavor depth. When we think about our global inspired dishes, so we think about our chicken pad thai or our coconut curry, um, or our coconut last cod, right? So for these, we want to bring out more flavors, right? We like the flavors. So maybe we want to add some curry powder, turmeric, or ginger. Maybe we want to add some lemon or lime juice on top of the meals, or again, we can zest it. So we can take some of the outside. First, we clean, let's say we're taking a lemon or a lime. We want to clean the outside of the lime, and then we want to take some of that skin off, and that will enhance the flavors. When we think about the Mediterranean and plant-based, some of our favorites, we think about like a falafel wrap or a chicken wrap or a salmon protein bowl. And so the flavors that go really well with these would be oregano, thyme, rosemary, parsley, and even basil. This will help to enhance our flavors, right? Our aromatics will also make the food taste so much better and we won't have to use salt. We can even add things like sun-dried tomatoes or mushrooms or olives, and this will kind of enhance the flavors as well. When we talk about like our fresh and our light flavors, we have dishes like our gazpacho or our fish tacos, with our cabbage slaw. And so we want to add more like bright and zesty flavors to them. So using things like lemon, lime, rice vinegar, this brings a little bit of a fresh tang. If we use ginger and sesame seeds or even white pepper, this can give us a little heat and texture. If we use things like cilantro or mint or parsley, this really brightens up the dish. And a lot of the time we eat with our eyes, right? That's the first thing that we do. So we want to have more of that. If it looks good, I'm going to eat it. So here's my challenge to you. What would you add to give these dishes more flavor without salt? If we have our chicken tacos, what kinds of things would you want to add?
I would probably add some spices and some citrus.
That sounds really good. So some of the things that we could add in addition to that, so talking more further about it, is we could add some cilantro, we could add some lime, we can add a little bit of cumin or paprika, and that would bring out more flavors as well without having to add any kind of salt. If we have the pomodoro meatballs, maybe we want to add some fresh basil or oregano. We could even add some chili flakes to bring out some more spice. And if we're having a falafel wrap, right, maybe we want to add a little bit of lemon zest or a little bit of lemon, black pepper, or even some chives, and that would help to kind of bring a lot of the brightness, some of the aroma, some of the warmth without having to add salt. So you don't have to really overhaul the meal. We just need to tweak it in the right places to bring out more of the flavors. So now that we've really explored how to boost our flavors, let's talk about some of the more seasonings, right? When we're building seasonings that work for us, we want to use herbs and spices. They pack a lot of flavor. Some of the seasonings that work best with meats, soups, and veggies and grains, we're going to talk about that in 1 second. We want to make sure that we're starting small, maybe trying 1 to 2 seasonings at a time. And then we really want to taste and adjust as we go. So for example, if we're having soups, stews, and sauces, a lot of the time we can add bay leaves, basil, garlic, onion powder, oregano, curry, ginger, cloves. We can add dill. These types of things would go really well with soups, stews, and sauces. If we have meat, poultry, and fish, we can add things like allspice or paprika, rosemary, lime juice, or lemon juice to bring out more flavors. If we have salads or vegetables or even some light meals, maybe we want light ingredients. So we want to add basil or parsley or cilantro or dill. Lemon juice is always a good one to add. Cinnamon, this gives us some sweet flavorings for our snacks or even some salads. A lot of the time we can put cinnamon on our oatmeal to enhance it. When we have rice, grains, or breads, and even some sides, we can add saffron or curry powder, lemongrass, or even vinegar to bring out more flavors. And some of our global flavors, we can add ginger, paprika, fish sauce, but we do want to be careful to make sure that we're having a low sodium fish sauce or even miso. That can be a great swap for some salt, and coconut aminos when we can use that instead of using the soy sauce when it's really high in sodium. Coconut aminos are very similar and they give less salt. So let's get creative. What's your go-to combo that you would want to try at home? Let's choose 1 herb or 1 spice, 1 citrus, or even vinegar, or even 1 aromatic to a dish that you can think of. Is there anybody that wants to share?
I would probably add some basil, some lemon, and some garlic to the pomodoro.
That sounds delicious. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
If we want to make our own salt-free all-purpose seasoning at home that we could add to maybe a rice dish or a meat dish or even a fish dish or our vegetables, we can add a little bit of this without using extra salt. So we can do 2 tablespoons of dried onion, 1.5 teaspoons of thyme, 2 tablespoons of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1 tablespoon of paprika. Shake that all together, and then we can add that on top of any of our ingredients to enhance the flavor without salt. So it's completely normal for food to taste a little bit different at first when we're reducing our salt, right? So some of our tips that we like to kind of think about when we're becoming a savvy taster is we want to give it at least 2 to 3 weeks for our taste buds to adjust to less salt. If you see that things are tasting differently, give it a little bit of time. We want to start small and we want to cut back on salt little by little. We don't want to go completely 100% no salt today. We want to gradually build our flavors. So maybe today we use a little bit less of the salt than we did yesterday. And we want to make sure that we are flavoring from the start. We don't want to wait until the food hits our plate. So we can use salt-free seasoning blends while cooking, not just at the table. So that's another way. So true or false, right? Salt or no salt? Your taste buds can adapt in 2 to 3 weeks. Is that true or false?
I believe that is true.
Correct. What about this one? True or false? Vinegar and citrus can help to replace salt in many recipes.
I also think that is true.
Yes, thank you.
Of course.
So your path to a healthier you, right? So today we talked about how sodium is really important, but only in small amounts, right? We need some, but not too much. Most of us eat too much, which can affect our heart health and our kidney health, raise our blood pressure, and so cutting back can really help to reduce bloating, lowering our blood pressure, and really help with our health risks. And foods can still taste amazing without salt, and our taste buds will adjust. So we want to make sure that we are starting small. We're trying new herbs and spices, vinegars, and different aromatics. And now you have a lot of the tools to build your flavors and protect your health. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I want you to be able to take what you've learned today and start experimenting at home. Your body and your taste buds will thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Thank
Do
you.
we want to answer any um follow-up, or is there anything else that we want to make sure that we cover?
I don't have anything unless you guys do.
No, I think that we can make sure that we share this out with people in Fair Start, and also share it with the wider audience. And then we will probably circle back with you when we get some comments about what people understood and questions they have, and maybe talk a little bit of follow-up.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for being
Samantha.
here.
That was awesome.
Appreciate you. Absolutely. And we will definitely be in touch. Thank
Okay, sounds
you.
good. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.